We're back for our daily college basketball best bets here on Saturday, January 10th. We've got a whole lot of games today, obviously, with it being the weekend, and I found the 5 best bets for this slate all day long. We've got games starting at 10 a.m., concluding with the late night spot in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we've got best bets all day long for this Saturday set. And folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. Later today, we're going to have our NBA best bets on the channel, so don't make sure not to miss that. Also on the channel are NFL predictions, best bets, and best player props. Obviously, the wild card round and wild card weekend starts today, so make sure to check out those videos. And on Greedo Plays MMA, our UFC 2026 futures video predicting every single champion by the end of 2026, all future bets. You're not going to want to miss that video. That is linked in the description down below. Before we get into it, yesterday a 3-2 day. I keep saying it every day. We are this close to breaking through for a monstrous day. Yesterday, UNLV not covering yesterday in Fort Collins against Colorado State. One of the worst non-covers I've ever seen. There was not a single point in that game other than the first 2 minutes or first 5 minutes of the entire game where UNLV was not covering 7.5. They find a way to not cover, and I knew it was going to happen. I absolutely knew it. With 20 seconds to go, by the way, that game was tied with 90 seconds. But with 20 seconds left to go, somehow Colorado State goes up by 7. They get an and 1. It is what it is. UNLV's got the ball down by 7 with 10 seconds. They get fouled. Guy misses the first of 2 free throws. He makes the second. It would have been better if he missed both because he hits one 6-point game with 7 seconds. What does UNLV do? They foul down by 6 with 7 seconds left to go. And then obviously the damn Rams make both the free throws. UNLV goes down the court, misses a 3 to try to cover the spread. Team's down by 6, still trying to foul. What are we doing? It was the same exact thing that happened to us at UNR earlier in the year when we had UC San Diego. One of the worst bad beats we've gotten in a very long time. We still had a positive day, but I mean, that should have been 4-1. We go 3-2 yesterday. Miami of Ohio is so legit. I keep saying it every single day. That team's going to the tournament, no matter if they win the MAC or not, they're going to the tournament. Shout out to Iona for beating up on Niagara. Akron beats up Bowling Green. In the 2 late games, Minnesota loses in overtime to USC, and then UNLV doesn't cover by a singular point or a half point because, of course, they don't. It is what it is. We've been positive for the last couple days, just 3-2s, man. We're this close to the 4-1s and potentially 5-0s, but it is what it is. We've got a lot of action today. Let's get it going. First of 5 best bets for this Saturday set of games. Kicking things off back in the Mid-American Conference. Matchup between 2 Michigan teams as we've got Eastern Michigan going to Kalamazoo, Michigan over in West Michigan to obviously take on the Western Michigan Broncos. I'm taking EMU. We had Eastern Michigan earlier in the week. We took them going on the road to Muncie, Indiana to take on Ball State, and we're going to take them yet again back on the road over in Kalamazoo against Western Michigan. East Michigan 2-2 so far this year in MAC play with losses at Akron and at home against Ohio by 1 point, wins at home against Massachusetts, and then a road win where they just dominated Ball State a couple days ago. As for the Broncos, 0-3 so far in MAC play, losing to Buffalo at home by 17 points, going to Toledo and losing by 5, and going to Miami of Ohio and losing by 11. I understand going to Miami of Ohio and only losing by 11 to that team, a team that, is going to shoot lights out the entire games with Byers and company. I understand that's not a bad margin to lose that team by. Going to Toledo and only losing by 5 isn't horrible either, but you got to look at the all-around body of work that WMU's been putting together this season. It's not good. Their only wins so far this year against Division I opponents are Coastal, Purdue Fort Wayne, Mount St. Mary's, Purdue Fort Wayne, by the way, who did beat Notre Dame earlier in the year, more on the Fighting Irish later in the video, Southern Indiana Screaming Eagles, and SIUB on the road. Let's not forget WMU this season lost a home game in Kalamazoo to Northwood. What are the Northwood, Michigan Timberwolves? I don't know, but just remember that WMU lost a home game this season to a Division II program. They are now coming into this game losing 5 of 6. The only victory in there is to, what do you know, another Division II team. The Defiance Yellow Jackets went into Kalamazoo and got blown out as expected. But WMU losing 4 out of 5 going into this game against the EMU team that I was very impressed by in their victory at Ball State. Now, I went into that game saying, all right, we're going to take EMU here, but we're taking the Eagles not because I'm really big on this squad. I'm taking them because Ball State just sucks. And obviously, it went our way. Ball State saw some momentum early, but eventually Eastern Michigan flipped that game, and they really just went on a big run that closed the first half and then just dominated in the second half. The final score was 74-52 in favor of the Eastern Michigan Eagles. I think it kind of, that same logic kind of applies here, where I do believe the Eagles will be able to control this game against the Western Michigan Broncos, but at the same exact time too, I think EMU, I'll say this, I was very impressed about how EMU played against Ball State. This is a team that has to deal with some adversity early, but finds good shots. They drive and attack the basket successfully. 58% shooting it from the field, 11 for 21 from beyond the arc. And I understand Ball State is not the best defensive team, but all around it was a very good effort out of EMU, and I really liked the performance. I think they can easily take that now into a game over in Kalamazoo against the Western Michigan Broncos. I was really impressed with Carlos Hart. I mean, every single time Carlos Hart shot the basketball, he scored after only scoring 4 in the game prior to Ball State against Ohio. Carlos Hart goes out there 7 for 10 shooting, 2 for 3 from beyond the arc. He's averaging 14 points per game, is the senior out of Miami, Florida. Last season or 2 seasons ago at New Orleans with the Privateers, now back at the Division I level with Eastern Michigan, and I was really impressed with his performance on the road in Muncie against Ball State. They also got 12 points out of Addison Patterson. Patterson, again, averages 12 points per game this season, put up 12 against Ball State. This is a player that was at Oregon pre-pandemic, then went to Northwestern State last year, now at EMU, an experienced guy, an experienced forward who can score. And what I really like about EMU and what we saw against Ball State, they just don't take bad shots. I mean, they're going to work for good looks. They're going to get inside. They're going to, they're going to test your interior defense, and they're going to try to get the easiest looks possible. And I don't think WMU really has any stopping of this team. Western Michigan gives up so many points on a nightly basis, and their last 4 games against Division I opponents, they've given up at least 84 points in each of them. 91 on the road in Iowa City against Iowa as expected, but at home against Buffalo giving up 88, then going to Toledo and giving up 84, and then going to Oxford against Miami of Ohio, who obviously one of the best offensive teams in the country, but giving up 87 there. I mean, 3 straight games. That's those points aren't just, oh, look how good Miami of Ohio is. No, you do that every single game. Valparaiso, you go on the road and play, does Western Michigan, and they go to Valpo, and Valpo puts up 84 points in them. They went to South Dakota to play the Coyotes, and the Coyotes put up 83 points. The Campbell Fighting Camels put up 91 points in this team. And again, that Northwood game against the Division II Timberwolves, Northwood comes into Kalamazoo and puts up 85 points in the Western Michigan Broncos. It's not a good defensive team, and if you give Eastern Michigan all of these easy looks and all these bunnies, they are going to convert, and that's exactly what we saw in the Ball State game. Ultimately, I don't think much changes from the Ball State game if I'm EMU. The only difference is there is a heavier scoring presence, I will say, for Western Michigan. WMU is a better scoring team by far than Ball State. This is a Western Michigan team that got their leading scorer back, or one of their best scorers back, in the game against Miami of Ohio. That would be Justice Williams. Williams had been out since the beginning of the season. This is a player who was at Louisiana State for a couple of years, was at RMU last year, and now over with the Western Michigan Broncos. Still coming off the bench, but I do believe he's going to be a pretty solid scorer for them. He's played the last 2 games, played 30 minutes in each of them. I would assume he's going to be back in the starting lineup now, but regardless, Justice Williams is going to continue to likely to be a big scorer for this team, alongside Jalen Griffith, who averages 15 points. He's taken a step back in the last couple of games, especially as they have gotten into conference play. This is a player who used to be with the Jacksonville Dolphins. I don't know. Griffith is okay. I think, again, Justice Williams is likely your guy, and Jaden Brewer, too. Brewer averages 13 and 8. Very athletic player who used to play at Florida International for 3 seasons. But I don't really care who can score for WMU. I understand, again, they're a better scoring team than the Ball State Cardinals, and that's the difference ultimately going into this game if you're EMU. However, defensively, Western Michigan can't stop anything. They give up a bunch of points, and there's a reason they are 0 so far in MAC play, and I really like the direction EMU's going in. Again, Corey Hart, I think, is their best guy. Carlos Hart's their best guy. Muhammad Abab as well averages 13 and 8, all around solid big for this team. Has struggled in the last couple games, but I mean, eventually that guy's got to come on. Addison Patterson has played well. I'm going EMU on the road here. I'm not going to take a WMU team that's yet to win so far in MAC play. I think Eastern Michigan's able to go on the road and pick up a win here. Give me the Eagles to convert against a no defense squad in the Western Michigan Broncos. On now to our second best bet of the video. Very similar spot, but even crazier. Montana. Same odds for this game as the Montana Grizzlies go on the road to Cheney, Washington, to take on the Eastern Washington Eagles. Absolutely give me Montana to win the game. May be my favorite bet of the day. They're only minus 115 to go on the road and beat Eastern Washington. And I know, again, we had spoken at length earlier in the season about the struggles the Montana Grizzlies had faced. The fact that they went to UNLV earlier in the season and they came home, lost to Lamar, lost to Oakland, lost to North Dakota State. This is a team that was projected to finish first in the Big Sky Conference. They have likely the best player as a whole in the Big Sky as well in Money Williams. And they struggled after a huge victory on the road in Las Vegas against UNLV. However, so far in Big Sky play, Montana, who is projected by most to win the conference, has settled in and locked in as they're 3-0 so far in Big Sky play, beating Northern Arizona, who I know is really bad, but beating Northern Arizona, beating Northern Colorado, and most recently going on the road and taking out the Idaho Vandals by 6 points. They should go to EWU and win as well. I think, they have a matchup against the Montana State Bobcats coming up next week, a week from today. That's going to be a difficult matchup. Obviously, the rivalry between Montana and Montana State, obviously, it's huge in football. They just played in the FCS playoffs, but obviously still a thing in college basketball as well. This matchup, though, should be light work, I believe, for the Montana Grizzlies. Eastern Washington is not on their level. Eastern Washington, again, Montana is, not playing to expectation, yet they're still likely going to win the Big Sky. Eastern Washington's won 2 games all year long. They're 2-13. You're telling me they're going to all of a sudden turn it around today at home against the likely conference champions and the best team in the conference in Montana? I don't think so. Eastern Washington 2-13 this season, with their only 2 victories being Eastern Oregon and Kansas City. That's it. So far in Big Sky play, I know they've played teams tight, and I understand their record is a little fake because they take all these bye games and they play good teams and they lose. However, they have lost 2 Big Sky games going into this one. If this was Eastern Washington versus a Sacramento State or an Idaho, or hell, even like a Portland State maybe. Probably not, I'd still take Portland State. But if it was like, again, a Idaho or a Sac State, I would say, okay, maybe a trap game of sorts for EWU. For Montana against EWU. Not at all. Not at all. Or I would take EWU because, again, it would be a trap game for those teams. Eastern Washington's played 2 games so far in the Big Sky. They go to Idaho, lose by 3 points. They just toasted the Montana State Bobcats, lose by 4 points. Competitive games, yes, 100%. Competitive games, and that's what Eastern Washington has done all year long. They have played tight games. The problem is they don't win tight games. They have not won a clutch game all year long. Their 2 victories are blowouts against Eastern Oregon and against Kansas City. Both of those games aren't close. They've played tight games all year long. They played UCLA early in the season, first game of the year, lost by 6. Played Loyola Marymount on the road, lost by 8. Went to Colorado, lost the game by 5 points. Went to Seattle U, lost by 30. But Seattle U continues to lose in the WCC. They're just like, they're just the toughest team you're going to play without a good record, but it is what it is. Eastern Washington plays North Texas on the road, lose by 8 points. Denver on the road, lose by 4 points. Cal Baptist at home loses by 5 points. They play teams tight every single game, yet they can't find ways to win. That's where Montana is going to specialize in winning this basketball game. I don't think it's particularly close. I think Montana really takes over this game, something that, we saw them do at times against Northern Arizona and Northern Colorado. And don't forget, right, Northern Colorado, a good team. That's a team that went to Colorado, yes, the Buffaloes, about a week ago exactly, and beat the Buffs over in Boulder. So there are some good wins for Montana. They have just gone on the road. They went to Idaho. They got the victory. And I can't talk about Montana basketball without talking about Money Williams. And again, I believe where Montana really takes this game is in the clutch minutes and in close games, because that's where Montana has been good at this season. They've been good in winning tight contests. Look at the UNLV game. Look at the Cal Poly game. The win over Idaho most recently. They're going to win these close matchups. I know they lost to a Division II team earlier this season in Montana Tech, and that's when I thought they hit rock bottom. But it is what it is. They've locked in for Big Sky play, and we now have to forget about the Montana Tech game. 3-0 in the Big Sky is 3-0 in the Big Sky, regardless of how you feel about Northern Arizona. I will definitely tell you the Northern Colorado victory is big, and going on the road and winning anywhere, and Idaho is a good place to win. That's what Montana's done so far. So again, we have to ultimately disregard the Montana Tech game because what they have done so far in Big Sky play. Again, talking about Montana, you got to talk about Money Williams. Money Williams, likely the best player in the Big Sky from Oakland, California, 3rd year at Montana, really took over as the star last season for the Grizzlies. He went from averaging 13 points last year now to 20 points this season, and in his last 2 games, he's gone insane. Money Williams against the Northern Colorado Bears, 35 minutes and 31 points on 7 for 15 shooting. And again, it's a lot of free throws, but it is what it is. Hey, teams have to foul him. He's got a really great whistle in the Big Sky Conference because Money Williams in that game against Northern Colorado, 0 for 5 from the 3-point line. yet he still scores 31. Next game, a couple days ago on Thursday against the Idaho Vandals, Williams, 11 for 21 from the field, 1 for 4 from beyond the three-point line, but 12 for 14 from the charity stripe, resulting in 35 points for Money Williams. He finds ways to score. And, I like what EWU's got going with Isaiah Moses. Isaiah Moses, former UCR player. He escaped the cesspool and now got over to Eastern Washington. He can hoop. I will say that. Isaiah Moses, quick rundown on him, right? Had to share a backcourt last year with Barrington Hargress, who's now at the University of Colorado. And obviously Hargress was the star last year at UCR. So Moses had to kind of take a step back. This is his team now, but he's on a very bad Eastern Washington team, a team that's actually even worse than the cesspool currently, and is obviously Moses' former team. But Money Williams is by far the best player on the court. The question is, again, do they get Money Williams any help? Tejon Sawyer's not bad. Sawyer averages 10 points per game. He's been putting up 13, 15, and 16 in 3 straight outings. Sawyer is a very experienced college basketball player. He's been playing since 2020. Started at Cal Baptist, now over with the Montana Grizzlies. I like the Grizzlies to get this one done. I think they can win the close game if it is competitive, but I do personally think they're going to run away from EWU. Once there has been a precedent set of losing and continuing to lose basketball games, you continue to unravel. EWU is going to get their victory eventually in Big Sky play, but ultimately, this is not a Sacramento State. This is not a Northern Arizona. This is not an Idaho State. This is the best team in the conference. And I know, again, the Montana Tech loss it sticks. I understand. This is the best team in the conference. They should be able to get it done. I'm going to go Montana with a road victory over an EWU, beating the Eastern Washington Eagles. Montana Grizzlies money line at -115. Going on now to the Atlantic Coast Conference. Clemson Tigers, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Give me Clemson at -140. Clemson 3-0 so far in the ACC. Notre Dame coming off of that West Coast trip, or I guess that Bay Area trip against both Stanford and Cal. Shrewsbury, obviously, Shrewsbury's dad, I'm talking about obviously Braden Shrewsbury's father, almost attacks an official, or almost attacks a referee after the end of Cal and Notre Dame. Well deserved, honestly. I mean, not Shrewsbury, Notre Dame, I'm not going to lie to you. They got robbed in their last game against Cal. Absolutely robbed. But that is a game that's a season-defining loss. It is. Let's be honest. Notre Dame lost to Purdue Fort Wayne. And then they go into ACC play. They beat Stanford in one of the worst ACC games I've ever watched. Final score 47-40 in favor of Notre Dame. Neither team could really hit anything, but Notre Dame just had that slight edge the entire game, so ultimately, obviously, they won the game. But one of the worst basketball games I've ever seen, again, was Notre Dame versus Stanford. And then Notre Dame looks to go 2-0 on the West Coast, or at least in the Bay Area, against their Atlantic Coast Conference opponents, and they should have beaten Cal. They had that game done, and they were up by, 6 points with 30 seconds to go. And for some odd reason, the officials in the ACC or the referees in the ACC decided just to hand the game to Cal. If you didn't watch the game, it's a 3-point game with 8 seconds to go. Cal chucks up a very long three. Notre Dame's trying to foul up three, give them the 2 free throws, and the referees called continuation. And it pretty obviously was not continuation. I mean, the foul was very clearly on the dribble, and it was a very late shot, and the refs just gave it to Cal. Shot went in, by the way. Who was it? Was it Ames? I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Ames, right? I'm fairly certain it was Data Ames who shot the 3. Data Ames chucks up a 3. He's pretty clearly fouled before the shot. It goes in, and they count the bucket and give him the free throw, obviously, and Cal wins the game by 1 point. Braden Shrewsbury's father, who's an assistant coach at Cal, almost attacks the referee at the end of the game. Honestly, well-deserved, but here's the thing, right? That's a season-defining loss. And I'm not saying it's Notre Dame's fault. They did everything they needed to do to win that game. Yes, there were some free throws down the stretch where they should have hit and should have, clinched them the basketball game. But ultimately, yes, the ACC refs took that game away from them. I'm not going to lie to you. That was atrocious. Regardless, though, that is a season-defining L. You were thinking you were going to start ACC play 2-0. You went on the road after losing at home to Purdue Fort Wayne. You went to Stanford and won. You thought you were going to go to Cal and win, and you lose. And by the way, you're doing this without Marcus Burton, who still does not have an estimate on when he's going to be back. Obviously, Marcus Burton, by far the best player on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. He's a guy who's averaging 19 points per game this season. He has been the definition of Notre Dame basketball since he walked through the doors in South Bend his freshman year. He averaged 18 his freshman year, 21 last year in his sophomore season, and so far this year, he's been averaging 19, starting point guard for the Irish. He had surgery, I think in December was it, and there's still no estimate when he's going to return. Obviously, it's not going to be tonight. So the Irish have really struggled to find production beyond Marcus Burton. Yes, they beat Stanford, but they scored 47 points in win that game. They couldn't score. Stanford couldn't score. I will give the Irish credit. They buckled down and played good defense, but ultimately, there's not many games where you can repeat scoring 47 points and win. So Jalen Harrelson and Braden Shrewsbury have been their top guys. Harrelson averaging 15 points per game, Shrewsbury averaging 12. I will tell you this, though. Those two guys are the only consistent scorers on Notre Dame. You watch the Irish play, those are the only two guys that can actually put up shots. And even in that Cal game, again, and like you saw in the Stanford game too, both of the games in the Bay Area, we saw Notre Dame go through the longest stretches where they just couldn't score. What changes here? Clemson is better than Stanford. Clemson is better than Cal. I know this game is obviously in South Bend, but I believe Clemson quite easily takes this basketball game, especially, obviously, with no Marcus Burton on the court. Clemson 3-0 so far in ACC play, 13-3 as a whole. They don't have an L to a team like, Purdue, Fort Wayne, as the Tigers now have won 6 consecutive games, beating Mercer, South Carolina. South Carolina's a good one. South Carolina, Cincinnati, Syracuse on the road, Pitt on the road, and Southern Methodist on the road. We know how good SMU can be. Obviously, they are 1-1 in ACC play, with the loss being to Clemson and the win being over North Carolina. Clemson picks up the win by 4 points. Now they're going on the road to South Bend. Not a place where I'm not scared of a team going. Clemson might not have the elite scorers, but they should be able to beat Notre Dame at their own game. Low scoring dogfights. But even with that, with Clemson not having a clear number one like Notre Dame is missing currently in Burton, I believe there are just all-around better scorers up and down the lineup for Clemson. RJ Godfrey is their leading scorer with 12 a night, but there's a guy like Justin Potter as well, who averages 11. Godfrey, again, does lead the team in points. Former Georgia player, started his career at Clemson, now back with the Tigers. Porter, former Middle Tennessee State Blue Raider, now at Clemson. But you got guys who can score. Again, Godfrey averages 12. Porter averages 11. Carter Welling averages 10. Dylan Hunter averages 9 points per game. Kind of thought Dylan Hunter was going to do a little bit more this season, honestly, fully being a starter at Clemson. But again, he's never been a pure, score first type guy. He's just another starter on the Tigers this year. But regardless of all that, though, there's too much talent, I believe, on Clemson to lose this game to Notre Dame. Yes, the game's in Indiana, but you got to realize, again, no Marcus Burton still, I think, is going to continue to hurt the Irish. They were able to get through the Stanford game because there was no scoring. And then the Cal game, obviously, they did not have a closer in that one. Burton's been out, obviously, since early December. And you see, again, since the TCU game, Notre Dame hasn't played the best basketball. Since Burton's been injured, you beat Idaho, you beat Evansville, you lose to Purdue Fort Wayne, you beat Stanford, you lose to Cal. You're 3-2 post-Burton, and 3 of those games are against mid-major schools. So I got to go here, and including the loss, obviously, to Purdue Fort Wayne. So I got to go Clemson on the road. I think they're able to beat Notre Dame in South Bend, and I'm telling you, the Shrewsbury incident, and I'm not just completely pinning it on him, but that whole, again, loss at Cal and the way you lost at Cal, that either makes or breaks a season. Maybe if Burton's playing, that makes your season, and now you fully lock in down the stretch. I think that type of loss like that just really kills you. I'm going Clemson here on the road to go into South Bend and beat the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We move on now to the Mountain West Conference, another one that I just really like. I know we're taking a lot of road teams today, guys, but the value is on the road squads today. Utah State going to Boise State to take on the Broncos. Absolutely. Give me the Aggies at -115. Boise State just lost to Grand Canyon at home, and it's not like they barely lost. No, or they didn't cover, and they lost. Obviously, they got blown out. Grand Canyon beat them 75-58 in Boise. Boise State coming off of that very fun game over in San Diego, California against the Aztecs, one that they ultimately lost in triple overtime, a game in which Boise had multiple opportunities to seal it away and put San Diego State away. They failed to do that. Boise now 1-3 in Mountain West play with losses to Nevada, San Diego State, and now the Lopes of Grand Canyon, with their only victory being a home outing against New Mexico in a very weird, low-scoring game. Utah State's the best team in the Mountain West. By far they are. This is their first real test in conference play, I will say that. But this is a team that, although they have not been the most tested, they've been able to win at every single spot they've played this year, with the exception of USF, where we did have Utah State. But Utah State has done nothing but win this season. They're 13-1. Their only 2 road games so far in the Mountain West are Fresno State and Air Force, and I understand 3 out of their 4 games so far in Mountain West play are against the literal bottom of the barrel teams in the Mountain West this season, being Fresno, SJSU, and Air Force. They do have a win over Colorado State in there, a Colorado State team that obviously yesterday came back from behind and beat UNLV. Not like that's too crazy, but anyways, Utah State did beat the Rams 100-58 earlier in the season. Again, on the road, they go to Fresno, win by 9. They go to Colorado Springs and beat the Air Force Falcons by 37 points. Guys, I'm looking at Boise, negative momentum right now. Complete negative momentum for this Boise State team. That loss to GCU, back-breaking type L, man. Oh, no, the real back-breaking type L is the SDSU game. That's the one, right? You think you can go on the road, and this is why I took GCU spread in that game. I was like, how's Boise going to respond after playing 3 overtimes and losing, right? Obviously, SDSU bounced back, or well, actually stayed with it and played good basketball. Boise has to come back after they lose a triple overtime game and obviously losing to GCU. Again, we talk about season-defining games, season-defining L's. Yeah, look no further for Boise State than that game at San Diego State. It's a game they should have won. If you foul up 3, you likely win the game. You don't, you let SDSU chuck up at 3, they hit it, bam, bam, another overtime. Guys, I like Utah State quite a bit here. I think, okay, Utah State, I know, who have they beaten this season? Their best victory is VCU at home. I mean, is it VCU? It probably is. Unless you think Colorado State at home is a better victory. It's not. Davidson at home, or Davidson on a neutral site, they blew them out. I will tell you that. Like, they don't have a phenomenal victory. It is the case, though. I don't want to say they're like Miami of Ohio because they don't score like Miami of Ohio does. They don't just chuck up threes like Miami of Ohio does and make all of them like the Red Hawks do. But Utah State is one of these teams. I mean, they're not undefeated like the Red Hawks are, but they haven't been given ultimately that big opportunity yet, other than at USF, where obviously they did not come out on top and they got beat up early in that game. But so far, other than USF, every single team you put in front of the Utah State Aggies, they beat. And a lot has to do with this roster. And, you know, we knew what Mason Falsev was last season. He was very good for Utah State, averaged 15 points per game. You know, he's been good this year. He's not going to put up, he's not going to have monster games where he's putting up 25 on a nightly basis, but he will give you a good 16 points every single game because MJ Collins is the leader of this team. MJ Collins kind of comes out of nowhere, plays at Virginia Tech for 2 seasons, starts some, goes to Vandy last year, kind of got lost in the shuffle at Vandy, came off the bench, played some, but again, came off the bench, actually played quite a bit, but came off the bench. Now at Utah State, he's the star. I mean, he is the star now at Utah State, and the big difference in what MJ Collins has been doing this season is the three-point ball. I mean, this is a player who, it takes a high volume of threes, I'll say. He's going to take anywhere from 4 to 7 three-pointers per game. But this is a guy in MJ Collins who's really evolved this three-point ball. At VTech, he was a 28% three-point shooter. At Vandy last season, he was a 29% three-point shooter. He's a 47% three-point shooter now at Utah State. That shot's automatic for him now. It's not a shot where it's like, oh, okay, I don't know if that's really him now. No, that is MJ Collins' shot, is the three-point ball. And he's been an all-around scorer this season for Utah State, averaging 20 points per game this season for the Aggies. Huge spot against a good defensive team, well, at least you think they are in Boise. I think Utah State's going to dominate. I watched Boise State play. Again, disgusting effort, disgusting game that they played against the Grand Canyon Lopes. They go with Drew Fielder off the bench in that game for some reason. Don't ask me why. I don't know why they did that. Fielder has been their best player. He is their big, and they decided to go small with going Fielder off the bench. I think that has to be like a load management type thing of sorts because they've tried to keep Fielder's minutes very low this season, and then coming off the San Diego State game where he had to play 40, they go into the GCU game and Fielder only plays for 20 minutes because they want to keep him around that 20-minute mark. Again, this is a player that played for the Georgetown Hoyas for multiple seasons. So I still think Boise's feeling the effects of that triple overtime game. They did not want to play other guys that long. There's some players who can score. Again, Buchanan, Andrew Meadow, Dylan Andrews, former UCLA Bruin. There's guys, but it was such a lifeless effort against GCU, and now you quickly have to turn things around. I mean, again, you should have won a triple overtime game. You were down 20 points in that game. You find your way all the way, you find yourselves all the way back in that game. You should have won it at the end of overtime. You should have won that game multiple times, but you still find a way to choke it, and San Diego State wins in 3 overtimes. So then you got to turn around, play GCU. You get embarrassed against a team where you're an 8.5 point favorite against. You don't just, again, not cover. You lose the game by 18 points. And now you got to get refocused because the best team in the conference is coming into extra mile to Boise to play you. Yeah, I got to go with Utah State here. Absolutely. It's the best constructed lineup currently in the Mountain West. You can say, sure, they haven't beaten anybody yet. They've played the bottom of the barrel in the Mountain West. That is very fair. This is the game where they're going to prove it, though. Absolutely. I don't care they're at Boise. This defensively minded Boise team doesn't move me. When you got MJ Collins, if Falsev's having a good night as well, I don't think there's any stopping this Utah State team. If you're Boise State, I'm pretty clearly going with the Aggies here. I don't think the game's all that competitive. The three-point shooting is going to be huge, I believe, out of MJ Collins, out of some other players as well. Watch out for Colby King. If Colby King can get going from beyond the arc, he's a point guard on this team too who's going to play 25 minutes. They're dangerous. I'm going to go Utah State, just blow Boise State out of the water. I think, again, Boise's kind of faltering right now. I got to go with Utah State picking up on this. Aggies win at -115. Closing the night with a Big West matchup in Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm going to go with the UC Irvine Anteaters to cover 5.5 points against the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, who are frauds against good teams. UC Irvine is a very good team. Hawaii is fraudulent. I will continue to say that. Obviously, you want to catch them off of that island. I don't love betting against Hawaii on that island because crooked shit goes down at Hawaii, okay? There is some crooked stuff going on there. The referees are in on it. The only broadcast we can watch is the Spectrum broadcast with the Hawaii commentators. I have a gripe with them too because I always bet against this team. I hate them. I don't specifically hate the commentators, but it just pisses me off. Everything about Hawaii basketball games pisses me off. They shoot free throws more than any other team in the country at home. They everybody's Danny Ajava at Hawaii. They all get free throws no matter what they do, and they've got big fish Isaac Johnson, who does his stupid celebration because, he's just tall and he can bully teams who don't have bigs. Is that going to be a problem tonight? It might. It might be a little bit of a problem tonight. We have to put a lot of faith into Kyle Evans today. I think Kyle Evans is going to play well enough. And that's the number one thing I always look at when I pick Hawaii games. Do they have a big that can match against Isaac Johnson? Now, UCSD didn't do that, and they just doubled Johnson, and they obviously still won the game. They dominated the Rainbow Warriors, winning the game at only by 10 points, but still 83-73. UCSD doesn't have any real big players. They're one of the smallest teams in the Big West, and they still found a way to win. But we're looking at this game now in Honolulu. I think there's a very good chance UCI wins the game outright. We're going to take the points, though, because, again, we're going to factor in the points, and I'm sure Vegas is doing this, too. They're factoring the 5.5 points for the rigging that's going on in Honolulu, because of the fouls this team gets and the absurd fouls this team gets. I don't know what I don't know what the word is. What is the word when they do the hula dancing? At night. I don't know. I've never been to Hawaii. You know what I'm saying. I don't know if the referees are being treated to one of those the night before the game. What is that called? Maybe I should go to Hawaii and I'd know what that is called. I don't know if they're being treated to some resorts in Hawaii and why these refs in the Big West love the Rainbow Warriors. A luau. There we go. Got it off the top of my head. A luau. I think that's right. I think that's what that is. Anyways, I don't know if they're being treated to luau's before the game. I don't know what it is. Regardless, these refs love the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. I think UCI is good enough to win this game. Guys, UCI is still projected to be the best team in the Big West. I'd argue maybe it's SDSU, but after SDSU's last game, I don't know if it is anymore. Hawaii, again, is favored to win this game. They're coming off their L to UC San Diego. UC San Diego team that has now lost to Fullerton at home by 17 points and went to SLO, San Luis Obispo, and lost to Cal Poly. So I don't know who is the favorite at the Big West anymore. It's the winner of this game. And UCI is undefeated so far in the Big West Conference. Obviously, the runners-up last year in the Big West because of that dominant team in UCSD last season in La Jolla with Tate Jones and company. What a year. But obviously, UCI last season was the NIT runners-up, losing to Chattanooga, who I considered fading today. I got really close to taking the Sanford Bulldogs against Chattanooga. Couldn't do it. I feel like Chattanooga's a little bit due, so I completely stayed away from that game, even though I was really tempted to take Sanford. Anyways, UCI on a 5-game winning streak currently. They are undefeated so far in the Big West, beating C-Sun by 14 points at home, beating UCR, that cesspool at home by 13, beating C-Sub on the road by 4, Fullerton on the road by 22 points, same team that just beat San Diego State UCSD at UCSD, and then beating LBSU in their last game 2 days ago by 10 points. And I understand travel's a big thing because this is how they get you on the island. UCI likely got to Hawaii late last night, and now 24 hours later they're playing a basketball game. They again had to go over the Pacific Ocean, and now you got to play this game. I mean, they should make Hawaii have to come over to the States for every single game. Hawaii should be temporarily located in, in Salem, Oregon for basketball season. So all these schools don't have to go cross country back and or cross ocean back and forth. No, actually, Hawaii should be in California. They should locate Hawaii in, let me think of a random. They should locate Hawaii in Ukiah, California every single season and make them play there at Ukiah High School. So all these teams in LBSU, Fullerton, SD, UCI don't have to continuously go from California. C-Sun have to go from California back to Hawaii. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. They get their own advantage because they play on an island over an ocean. Regardless, UCI should still win the basketball game. Again, Kyle Evans is the biggest player on the court tonight for UC Irvine. Jurian Dixon's their best player, don't get me wrong, but Kyle Evans has the biggest assignment. He's their center, averaging 12 and 8. He has to deal with big fish. Isaac Johnson, who couldn't cut it at Utah State, but now is playing obviously for Hawaii and making a name for himself with his stupid celebration that all the fans do. If you just get a body on him, he's not that good. Isaac Johnson is a small team merchant. He only plays well against small teams like Manhattan. If you get some bodies on him, you're able to beat him. And other than that, Isaac Johnson's their only source of offense. All their other players can't shoot. They're an awful shooting team. They just, they drive to the hoop and flop their bodies to try to get fouls, and Isaac Johnson will usually put back those three-pointers that they miss. If you have an actual big like Kyle Evans is, and the refs don't rig the game for Hawaii, UCI should win. Best player on the court is going to be Jurian Dixon on both sides. Dixon averages 16.5 points per game. He's the only player that returned from that dominant UCI team last year. Obviously, I'm talking about Ben Leichton, Miles Che, Justin Hahn. Jurian Dixon's the only player who returns this season from that starting lineup. He's averaging 16.5, just dropped 23 in their last game against Long Beach State. Him and Darren Saron averaging 12. And then obviously Kyle Evans as well is going to play a massive part in this game. I got to go with UC Irvine here. I know, again, there is that natural landform advantage that the Rainbow Warriors get because the game's in Honolulu. I don't care. I'm going UCI on the road. I am tempted to take the money line, but again, we are going to give ourselves 5.5 points worth of insurance and allowance here just because some tricky dicky shenanigans are going to go on that island tonight. Give me plus 5.5 for UCI to close our Saturday night. I just need them to keep it close. Folks, thank y'all for watching our college basketball best bets here on January 10th. If you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for more daily college basketball best bets. Folks, thank y'all for watching. And Mamba forever.